Well, good evening, KZFR. This is Riding on Air. Hope everyone is having a wonderful night tonight. I am Kevin, your host, and I'm here with my co-host, Brennan.
Hey, it's great to be back. I'm sorry we all missed your Easter, but I hope you all had a good one.
Hopefully. I would imagine everyone had a pretty decent one. Well, this is Riding on Air, and we'll go ahead and let you know that if you want to submit and be part of the show, like our guest host today, which we'll get to in just a second, you can do so at any time you want. We definitely have no bars there, and you can also do so on our email at write.onair@gmail.com.
That is WRITE.onair@gmail.com.
You can call in, you can be on our Facebook page, what else do we have, YouTube, pretty much any of those. If you want to reach us, you can reach us, and I will check them and respond, and you can be on the show. Like our guest tonight, Jan Mathews. How's it going?
It's going well. Good evening.
Jan Mathews is a published author who, this is her second time, not second time on the show, but this is the part 2 episode, I will say.
Part 2.
Yes, the last episode we had was part 1, and that was her published work. And so this is going to be a Writing on Air exclusive.
It is so exclusive that I don't think my husband's even heard most of this work. So if you're listening, you're the first. Get ready.
Wow, that is going to be cool. I actually don't think we've had that on the show before. Unpublished work. I mean, lots of unpublished work, but not exclusives.
This is the exclusive. We need that. Dun dun.
Yeah, and even though this is unpublished, you have a book.
I do.
And tell us about that.
That book is a collection of poetry available on Amazon. It is called Often Overlooked.
I have it, and it is a good book. I can say that much.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have a lot of pieces to get to, and not much time to do so. So let's go ahead and dive into your first piece.
All right. This first piece is called Passing Lane. It's probably not what you expect. Passing Lane. I wonder what he saw behind closed lids as he merged onto a new highway. Was he checking his rearview mirror? Did he glance, perchance, over his shoulder to see me holding his hand? Watching his breaths come more and more slowly, gurgling and wet. His blinker was on, yet he did not change lanes, hovering between here and there. Decelerating and weaving, I put the phone by his ear. His sister's voice, clear and sad, calm and loving, telling him the lane was clear, that it was okay to move now. The oncoming traffic with headlights on slowed and pulled over to let him pass. I wonder what he was seeing as he merged, exited my lane. I hung up the phone, patted his hand, and continued on my way.
Both of us had to just let that sit in for a second. Wow.
So I can give you some background while you digest.
Yeah.
This is a firsthand experience with, I'm a caregiver and advocate with American Cancer Society and out on my own. And I had the great fortune to make a friend. Cancer introduced us, and I was his caregiver for the last 12, 18 months of his life. And we became really great friends, and we were driving on the same highway for quite some time, and then he took an exit where I couldn't go. So I wonder if he knows that I'm still driving the highway, and I wonder where he is. We've talked about this before on previous shows. What happens? And I like driving a lot. It's one of my most comfortable places to be. So imagining him driving again and being on his own highway, making his own way, I like that thought quite a lot.
That is good clarification for this too. So I was picturing a lot of things, but wow, man, the line decelerating and weaving. I put the phone by his ear. His sister's voice, clear and sad, calm and loving, telling him the lane was clear, that it was okay to move now. When you first read through that, I thought, oh, this must have been maybe like an accident or something where like backseat driving, oh, the lane's clear now, go ahead and veer over. And I was trying to kind of figure out what was going on. But now that line after some of the background really, man.
Yeah, his sister actually was on the phone from across country. But if you didn't know that, it could be him talking to someone else who's already there. I think a lot of people have the idea in that when they die, they're going to go see their loved ones again. So I think it could be read either way.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Man, that is a tough piece to read. Wow.
Yeah, I really just, I don't have much to say on this. It's deep and it's sad and
hopeful in the same way.
Yeah, it's a little comforting at the same time.
I think you're never truly alone when you're on the highway.
And I like how relaxed it is. There's nothing fast about this. There's nothing violent at any point. It's just there was a simple merge and change lanes. That's it, which is a really wonderful life perspective, I think, and a really way to put that in writing, I guess. Very good. Very, 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 very good. Wow.
Thank you.
And I should say, too, because we talked about this before the show, but the pieces tonight don't follow one theme necessarily.
No.
It's just kind of...
They're just my newest pieces that I'm getting brave and reading out loud.
That makes sense. Okay. So, well, we'll just keep on rolling with it.
Sure. This next one is... it's about a former employer, mostly, sort of. So here we go. It doesn't really have a title yet. The title's kind of the first line, so we'll just pretend it has a title that's really awesome that I just don't know yet. In a movie, Winston Churchill said, "You cannot reason with a tiger when your head is in his mouth." I imagine he said it with vigor, equal parts conviction, reddened face, and spittle. I have lived so long trying to breathe, trapped in the maw of an unkind beast, unmerciful, an unreasonable detention. I know if he could see me, he'd listen, he'd hear. Even little people are people. I heard that somewhere. People with ideas, convictions. I'd screamed mine into his throat, words lost echoing down his esophagus, then reversing course, roaring back, stinking of bile. My own words return undigested, moist and mocking, to coat me in shame. So long held head first, held strong since birth, kept here in this trap, holding my breath, while the tiger inhales, a cool breeze swirls around me, quickly replaced by a gust of warm, exhaled air. Incisors graze just below my ears. I can see top and bottom canines, nearly touching each other and grazing my nose. Eventually I tire. He was right. Trying to make words only hurts more when I struggle. So I rest my right ear on his rough tongue and look out at the world sideways. Red-faced. Silence. Exhausted and still, searching for the strength in acquiescence. I stop trying to reason. I submit. Eventually, he will need to eat or sleep or piss. He will have to yawn or cough someday. Someday maybe he will just forget I'm here. I'll roll out and walk away, wipe the wetness from my face, smooth down my hair. I will breathe unshared air. I will stand up and roar with vigor.
And you said that was about a former employer?
Correct.
I can see that vividly.
You ever had a boss tell you how things are?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
It's like a trap, and you have to go with it. I love the intro, too. That first line. In a movie, Winston Churchill said, "You cannot reason with a tiger when your head is in its mouth." Oh, yeah, that's a job. That sounds exactly like a job when you have a boss who's just like, nope, it's going to be my way, and that's pretty much it, and you're stuck.
Yeah, it is not my current employer. So disclaimer, we've talked about disclaimers here. Yeah, not my current boss. My current boss is fantastic.
No name shall be mentioned. In fact, this is fictitious, right? It's not even...
Sure, yes.
Perfect.
It's all about Winston Churchill. Yeah,
Exactly.
No, yeah, sure.
I love, as well, you use one of my favorite words in existence, actually, acquiescence.
Acquiescence.
I cannot express how much I like that word. And for those of you who don't know, what does that mean?
It means to kind of let things slide. To not, I don't think it means to completely give up, but it means to hold your ground and let something happen that maybe you didn't want to have happen.
I see it as a green gracefully. Just
Okay.
okay.
And there is strength in that, but it's very hard to find it in the moment sometimes.
Yes, searching for strength and acquiescence. I mean, that line itself is hard to read too, because how can you be strong when you're giving in? Like that's what it's asking, because you're that's what acquiescence is. You're kind of giving up something, giving into that. And it's beautiful. It's such a good part. Exhausted and still, searching for strength and acquiescence. I stop trying to reason, I submit. And then you hope that maybe one day the ire that is focused on you will not be there. And
Someday.
you can get out. Whew. Man, that is such a just like carnal piece too. I love that was kind of that's what you were going for, I think. Because you want to think of a job as civilized and kind, but that's not always it.
Sometimes they are and sometimes they aren't. And working with people, and I work with young people, so I think part of the reason I wrote this was to remind myself that I never want to be that tiger. I want my little people to have a voice, my young adults that I'm working with. I want to hear what they have to say, because what they have to say is maybe not so important to me, but it's important for them.
Yeah, this just reminds me of that old saying. It's like talking to a wall.
Yes.
Yeah, there's nothing you can do. You can talk it to death. The mortar's not going to crack.
No.
Nope. They have all the power at that point. Oh, man.
Well, I think there's a little, we've talked about hopefulness, and there's a little bit of being inside your own head and saying it's not going to be like this forever.
Yep.
So even if you feel like you're trapped in a tiger's mouth, you can acquiesce for the moment and come out and roar with vigor.
And I like, at the end there, I keep saying that I like, but I do like it. I will breathe unshared air. I will stand up and roar with vigor. We were just talked about this oppressive tiger, and you said, I don't want to become the tiger, but that's not what that's saying. That is like, I'm becoming full of life and roaring myself. You could choose to become the tiger, I guess, and, keep that perpetuating cycle, or you can do something different with who you are and not do that.
Yeah, I think that you can roar with vigor, and you can still not have someone in your mouth.
Exactly. Yes.
You can be listening as well.
What a good piece. Okay, keep going. I know there's more. This is so good.
All right, this next one is completely different. And now for something completely different. This is a piece that I think sometimes writers talk about pieces just are given to them or they come to them. This was a firsthand experience that I watched unfold, and I put some meaning on it that worked for me. So here it is. It's called At the Aquarium, right? At the Aquarium. 10 plump, sticky, toddler fingers press into the transparent wall, whitening tiny nail beds, 5 along each side of his face. Slack-jawed, staring, small breaths, cloud and clear, cloud and clear, cloud and clear, the glass that separates air from water. 1 plump, sticky, toddler finger points, nose touches glass, sharp inhalation, then, ooh. The Garibaldi damselfish darts past, unaware of her effect.
I know there's so much to this, but what really, really just gets me is, why are all toddlers' fingers sticky?
It is a great mystery of life.
I don't understand that. I'm sorry. This is a great piece, but that stuck out to me so much because they're always sticky. I don't understand.
I think that's the great part about writing, is something, if that's what brings you in and keeps you interested. I think sensory details are tremendously important in particularly poetry, because you're not developing characters. You're not, making a giant point. You're taking a little bit of paper and a few words. So you need something to really hook this to an experience. And for me, those tend to be sensory.
Yeah, and I just love this is just wonder captured in a very short, very concise poem. That childhood wonder, because what is more awe-inspiring than being, especially like in one of those glass tunnels,
Sure,
under the water with fish all around you? That is just one of the greatest things to watch a child walk in there because their face will light up like you have never seen before.
And it was exactly that kind of situation. It was a floor to ceiling tank, so you walk down the stairs so you can see under the sea. And just watching this little person with his parents or his grandparents, I don't know who he was with, but just watching him watch all of the things that were going on around him was pretty magical. Not a lot of editing went on in this one.
That's wonderful. That's such a good piece. Oh, I want to keep talking about them, but I know we have a lot to get through and only a little bit of time to do it. So we'll move past the sticky toddler fingers. What is your next piece?
This next piece, we went from childhood, and now we're gonna do a little experimenting here. I'm realizing there kind of is a theme in these, which that's kind. Maybe your listeners will call you and let you know, hey, I figured out the theme. This is called Benrath Bus Stop. Hurrying to the bus stop, afraid of being late for dinner, Eva plops on the bench and swings her feet, pulling her jacket tightly up to cover her ears, guard against chilly air. She stares and shivers, blinking to warm her watering eyes, searching the horizon for her ride. It seems like forever to Eva. Sitting and swinging her legs, she counts the fence posts, following them up the road as far as she can see. Her stomach begins to rumble, reminding her she is hungry. The bus must be late. Mama always said not to worry, the bus always comes. So she sings a song she learned in school, sweetly and softly to herself. Froh zust sein Bedarf es winning, und wer froh ist ein König. A woman approaches, smiling and kind, bends and greets, hums and sits, tugging her own long coat over bright floral uniform shirt and green scrub pants. A gentle conversation begins about Eva's day and her worries and her hurry to get home. My mother is waiting. Dinner will be late if I am not there to set the plates and spoons and forks. The woman nods, pushes her hands deeper into her pockets, looking out into the distance, sitting apart and together, waiting for a bus that will not come. They are quiet for a while. The wind dies down. Eva sits up and glances at the woman beside her, as if they had not spoken, then looks down at her own hands, fascinated by the wrinkles and bluish-green veins weaving beneath brown age spots. Her own hands. Eva stops swinging her feet. The woman turns, shifting and reaching toward Eva tenderly. Her hand pats, then holds. Mrs. Klein, are you ready for some tea? I can take you inside, back to your room, where it is warm. Eva nods and stands, smiling at her friend and pointing with her cane. She sees the home, her home. Tea would be nice. I can set the plates and the spoons and the forks. Arms linked, they walk, away from the bus stop, humming softly and in no hurry.
And at the end there, that song, that's the translation for that song, am I correct?
Correct. It takes very little to be happy, and whoever is happy is a king.
And that was German?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. That's a potent piece.
So this actually comes from a news story about a memory care facility in Germany where they had a lot of their residents wandering off and becoming very agitated about needing to get home and misplacing themselves on the timeline of their lives. And the director of the home said, let's just put a bus stop outside. They can wander, they'll go wait for a bus, and after their agitation passes, we can invite them back in. And so I thought that was just a beautiful solution to something that could be so upsetting. To have a bus stop where, a little covered bench where people could go sit and maybe not catch a real bus, but catch a bus back to where they need to be.
Yeah, and this piece is wonderful. It really captures that because until the very end, I really thought that was just a little girl sitting on a bench waiting
So
for
did she.
a bus to go home.
Man, this type of story is probably one of my biggest fears. I'm gonna go ahead and go on a limb and say we're probably talking about dementia or Alzheimer's or something like that.
I think you're correct.
Yeah. And That is one of the most terrifying futures I can imagine for myself. And so reading this, like, it definitely had me go in one direction. Then when she looks down at her hands, I was like, oh, and it just dropped in my stomach.
But the thing is, for the person who's experiencing it, they don't know.
Yeah.
And that's what dementia is, the not knowing, and then the not placing, and being absolutely in the moment, whether it's a moment in your mind or a moment in the real world. I think it's much harder for the caregivers and for the folks who are on that regular trajectory, not the one that loops back.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think, what's the saying? That those type of diseases are take the toll on the caregivers, not necessarily the person who has them. It's always those who have to be around it. But man, that though being said is what makes this just a great piece. When you evoke things in the people who are reading it. Writing isn't always about evoking emotion and responses and your own memories, but sometimes it does do that, and that is a pleasant experience.
And Benrath is actually the name of the town where this. So I did a little research for this and pulled up common surnames for the 1930s in Germany.
Yeah.
And found a children's song from that time as well. My apologies for German speakers in the audience. Pronunciation, maybe yes, maybe no.
That's all right. It's your choice at that point. And Benrath Bus Stop, that is a beautiful idea. I will remember that. I'm actually going to look that up at some point later because I'm really curious about that. I think we're on to your last piece, or second to last one.
I have a couple.
Okay.
We can either talk about failure, or we can. Is that the last one? Did we get to 5? My goodness, it goes so quickly.
Yeah.
It's so easy to be here and talk to you. If there are any other writers out there, you should absolutely come work with Kevin. He's fantastic. He's a whiz with all things technical, and it's a very low key environment. So let's read failure.
Yeah,
How about
please.
that?
Thanks for that little.
I don't get paid to say that. Just
And I'm not
disclaimer.
I'm holding no weaponry pointed at her at all. So
Nope, none at all. All right, this one is called Failure. Crossing her aching, rubbed raw fingers, she leans over to pull the dreaded shirt out of the sink for the 17th time. Holding her breath and closing her eyes, she lifts the soaking blob by the shoulder seams again. Daring to peek at the left breast pocket, she grimaces and shakes her head, evidence along the pocket seam of his carelessness. Reaching for the zout an 18th time, she notices a halo of even whiter whiteness, a round glow encircling the fading stain, highlighting her failure. In his hurriedness, jamming an uncapped pen into his shirt pocket to shake hands, close a deal. He, as always, in a rush, so busy, allowing ink access to crisp, white cotton broadcloth, where it wandered unfettered. His preoccupation and importance, joining forces with capillary action and gravity, collaborate to draw deep blueness into fabric. With an uncommon level of persistence to remove his failure with her success and zout and scrubbing, she crosses her fingers again.
Oh man, we I think before, so as backing up a little bit for those who are listening, as host and co-host, I often don't read the pieces beforehand. This is probably a little bit more of a different situation, I guess, where we did do a little bit of talking beforehand.
Sure.
And one thing you had mentioned was possibly like gender roles and stuff like that. And oh my goodness, do I see them. Holy crap. That is like, it smacked me in the face so hard.
Well, I was raised in the 70s mostly. Wow. Okay. So my mom was really a liberated woman. She worked outside the house, but she still had laundry chores. I think this is a poem that's much more stereotypical gender roles. So probably my grandmother's generation and not so much my mom's or my own. But where dad goes and has an important job and he does the work, and it's pretty much mom as support staff. So I think that there was definitely, while a little misstep in his successful day closing the deal could become quite a I was going to say a mark on her. Yeah, that was a bad pun. But it could definitely become a way to see her failure as a laundress.
Thankfully, we don't live in times like this anymore where this is accepted normal behavior.
I hope not. I think that our successes and failures are measured differently. I think there are still some gender roles that are pretty deeply ingrained. But as far as doing the laundry, I'm here to tell you, my husband and I both do laundry, and he's better at it than I am. So it was a little reach for me to write this. This actually came as a prompt with some very specific details about 20 washings with Zout and an ink stained shirt. So
And I'm trying to figure out how I want to word this. Okay, so we can say that this is in the past. Obviously, it's probably about an older generation, most likely, 'cause
Sure.
of the Zout and stuff like that. And the title of this is titled "Failure." You could even be saying that this piece is saying that this was a failure. This generational aspect was a failure.
okay,
Don't go back to
I
that.
like that even better than how I had been thinking about it. One of my favorite things about talking to you is you oftentimes see things in here. You bring your own experience to this little bit of writing and make it so much richer than I can even imagine it in my head.
It's such a wonderful experience for me as well. And we always talk about this in our other shows. We have our own interpretations of it as readers, and everyone will have their own interpretation, things that stick out to them more or less or don't, which makes it fun to talk about writing. But it is really, really, really wonderful to have the author on here to be like, this is the background, this is what I was intending, and this is what I brought to it and put in the paper. Because it's nice to hear your voice of where it's coming from, because these pieces are absolutely wonderful.
Thank you. It's fun to write. Like the one with the toddler, that was really just what I saw happening. I didn't have a big meaning behind that, but there was a little hook in there for you. Why aren't their fingers always sticky? And my hope as the writer is that makes you want to read more.
To me, it's like there is no reason we necessarily eat like a good flavored candy other than we like it.
Right.
It's just good. And that's what reading that piece to me was like, having just a nice savory kind of aspect of life, I guess. And that was perfect. So that's what writing can be. It can be anything. It doesn't have to be this huge overarching crazy, oh, look at this whole in-depth thing. And the first thing that comes to mind to me is, and I always go back to this because rue the day, is Brandon, I think, knows what I'm going for here. The red wheelbarrow. I think that was it, right? It's you might know this one.
Maybe.
It has 16 words, I think, in total.
It is one of the most famous short poems in, I guess, California history. I'm pretty sure it's written by a California author. And it is an extremely short poem that literary critics and reviewers will write essays on.
Okay.
20-page essays, and it's got
All right, listeners,
4,
we have our
5
homework.
lines.
I'm going to have to go find it.
Point being, it doesn't have to be wild and crazy. But we're reaching the end of our show, and I cannot thank you enough for being on this show. So plug your stuff again.
My name is Jan Mathews. You can find my book, Often Overlooked, on Amazon under the name J.E. Mathews.
Man, these pieces were amazing. I cannot thank you enough for being on here, and I'm going to go ahead and say that we're probably going to have you on again at some point. I mean,
It's always my pleasure.
pending your willingness, I should say.
Of course.
Yes, I always love having you on because your book is titled Often Overlooked, and you write about some things that I have never even considered anyone putting to words, and it is always wonderful to see your take on them.
Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Well, thanks, everyone. This has been Writing on Air on KZFR 90.1, and we'll go ahead and end with some underwriting. So thanks, everyone, for staying tuned and being part of the show, and thank you again, Jan Mathews. Have a good night.